Nerds International proudly presents
Alfheim, the fourth realm of Earth, a world of fantasy adventure awaiting your imagination.
Warp Shell, a universe in ruin. Countless heroic tales waiting to be weaved through space and time.
Ghost Mountain, a place caught between heaven and hell, filled with fireside tales of the Wild West. These are the worlds of Index Card RPG, and this is a podcast about those worlds.
Welcome to the Threats, Treats, and Timers podcast, episode 3. I am one of your hosts, Gary, aka the Murder Hobo, and I am here, as always, with none other than Victor Diaz, the man, the myth, the legend.
Y'all ready for this?
And to his left, or possible right, is Frank the Tank, whom likes a good thank. I changed it up for you there, Frank, this week. Instead of a spank, I gave you a thank.
Okay, so now my kids can listen to it.
I don't know if that's a good idea. You did listen to the previous 2 episodes, right? Tonight, we are going to be talking about how to play ICRPG. So this was going to be an episode about how to play ICRPG. The premise for the episode was to teach people that weren't familiar with how to play the game some of the basic mechanics and show them the simplicity of the system. Originally, we had planned to hang out with Hankerin, do a little bit of chatting about the Core 2.0 and discuss the Alfheim Living Worlds idea. At first, that fell through. Hankerin had a bit of a snooze. You can hear him snoring in the background. And we just kind of muted him out, had a little bit of a chat about some stuff, and then Hankerin woke up. He came to. So we decided to pick up right where we were supposed to leave off, so to speak. And we're now going to be talking about Core 2.0 and Living Worlds with the freshly awoken and revitalized Hankerin. So stay tuned for that in the main topic today. My RPG week actually kind of sucked, to tell you the truth. I was supposed to, believe it or not, I was in line to play a Savage Worlds Flash Gordon adventure this morning with the actual writer, Scott Woodward. But due to some con crud, as the infamous Senda likes to call it, he wasn't feeling up to it. So how was your week, Victor? Did you get any gaming done this week? Because mine sucked.
No, you know what, Gary? I didn't have any games this week. A little bit like you said, I had just gotten over a bad cold, and no games for me. Just kind of working on all the content that I put out last week, brushing up on a few things, cleaning up the Book of Yogg, adding to the Torton Book of War, taking a look at the Endgame Zero World Primer that I posted. Really just clean up of a lot of those documents, adding in a few more ideas. And so on and so forth. It's only been a week, so there's only been so much time we can throw at it. What about you, Frank? What you been up to?
I was supposed to have a game this week, and for whatever reason, we did not have somebody show up to run the game. You know that guy?
Wow, a trifecta.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, I understand. We all have pretty busy lives, and we did not get to game this week. I did try to game a little bit with the kids. I tried to start an ICRPG game, and I came to the realization that my kids need pre-generated characters. So I am going to start making some pre-gens, and I may just keep churning them out. So you may get to see some of those pop up on the G+.
Yeah, kind of an ass week for everybody. It was a trifecta of crud. Scott Woodward's getting over the con crud. Victor Diaz is just getting over the crud. And the rest of us that were feeling healthy and wealthy basically just, got nothing out of the deal. You know, the worst part about it, too, is there's things that I could have done had I known things were going to bail before last minute. I'm still trying to get through the third part of my tabletop simulator game that I had built for ICRPG, so hopefully I can plan that in for next week. But actually, no, I have stuff to do next week. Next week, we got Wild Eye, and I believe we're going to try and do possibly the Kings of Convenience. I don't know if you've heard the actual play for that we do, where we play convenience
That actual
store
play
clerks.
is fantastic.
So yeah, hopefully we're going to finish off the third part next week, the third and final part. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe, I don't know. I don't run the show over there.
That's one of my things I look forward to for my commute to work.
I'm just a peon on that show over there. I'm not the one that cracks the whip.
Oh, but you certainly crack the jokes.
Well, not good jokes either. I can tell you that much. I don't really. Anyways, what have you been working on today, Frank? You were showing us these pieces of the puzzle. Your generic, or not your generic stuff. The stuff you were making there with the click and the bits and the stuff.
I just got to stay off the YouTubes because, I follow a lot of these guys. I mean, that's how I found Hank too. But some of you folks may be familiar with Wylock and his stuff. And one thing he did was he always seems to revolutionize what I'm doing, because first it was 2.5-inch tiles. So instead of having a 1-inch grid, he's got a 1 1/4-inch grid. And that was beautiful because you can put walls on tiles and your minis still fit on the grid if you play on a grid. The other thing he just recently did was he created this sort of interlocking system so your tiles don't move around. Now, I was using magnets, and that's great, but they can get expensive and not everybody has access to them. So I said, why don't I just start adding these little interlocking pieces to the bottom of my tiles, and they don't take up much space. It's made out of this dense chipboard, cardboard stuff that usually it's on the back of notepads.
Like the thing with magnets too is that they wear out after a while. It might take some time. Maybe it takes 100 years. Maybe it takes 1,000 years. I don't know how long magnets will stick together. But I do know that eventually they run out of magnetism. That's something that I saw on the YouTubes there a while back. But what about making ones that stick like balloons when you rub them on your head and stick the balloon to the ceiling, like they stick with static? So when you're like at the gaming store and you have like pieces you need to collect, you just rub it on your head and then it clicks together?
Gary, you are on the wrong podcast. You need to start a new podcast. That is revolutionary.
Right? That's genius, dude. You just rub it. Maybe maybe instead of having all these little extra bits or something, you could make like a static generating machine, and you just put the piece in them and just click, and away you go. No?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Sounds like a plan, Gary. Sounds like a plan.
Please give us a moment while we take a moment to take the alcohol away from Gary, and we restart this podcast in just a few minutes. Thank you so much.
I'm just thinking that you would have like a serious bald spot on the one side of your head after a good gaming session. Solid 8 hours. You're either going to have a headache or it's going to be like, the ding, fries are done, ding, fries are done. You're going to go to bed.
So you've been working on this project for a while then, right?
No, this is just the stuff that pops into my head. I'm just imagining, like, if you were to play like 8 hours of a solid game rearranging these tiles all the time, and you're constantly rubbing them on the side of your head to get the static to make them stick together, that when you went to bed that night after doing that for 8 hours, that's all you would hear in your sleep is the sound of that piece rubbing on the side of your head. Like, you put in a solid shift at Mickey D's at the fry machine, ding, fries are done, that's all you hear all night is that dinging noise.
What are we going to do with him, Frank?
I don't know. When you think you can't get any lower.
What do you mean
don't
lower?
Give him any ideas. Don't give him any ideas.
Wow. Man, I thought we were friends, man. Jesus. All right.
I gotta run. I work at Burger King making flamboyant Whoppers. I wear paper hats. Would you like an apple pie with that?
Take that then. Fine.
Okay, everybody, this one's dedicated to the old country, where I used to sip on bourbon all day, slay goblins, and get some sweet loot. It's called Walking Through Alfheim. Come on. Walking through Alfheim, getting to know a wilder kind, looking for a purpose in a tavern side. I would meet you anywhere. Cold and Lagar meets the air. Tirolo Stanos, never looking behind. Where's the whiskey?
Hankering's alive and kicking. He woke up. We got him on the Skype channel, and we're going to have a nice little chat with him about Core 2.0 and the Alfheim Living Worlds idea. Here it is.
Man, what's been going on? We've been sitting here trying to figure out what we were going to do about the next 1,500 different podcasts that we have planned. So many ideas, and then you drop Core on us, and we're like, whoa, let's slow the boat down a bit.
Oh my God, can I relate to that? I thought this was all going to start ending.
No.
It just didn't. So like Alex Alvarez was kind of like, hey man, maybe we should try to get second edition done. And I was like, dear Lord. And then I found out about his skill set, which is like he is for lack of a detail, a brilliant sort of legal document checker. And we started diving into it, and we started doing it page by page. And we're about 2/3 of the way through it now. And man, he has been a lifesaver in this whole second edition effort. Oh my gosh. It went from like, hey, maybe I can kind of start getting lazy to like it's been more intense than ever.
Somebody's cracking the whip.
I know. Yeah, exactly. And then it's just like in Aliens. It's like I'm crashing across the surface of LV-426, just grinding up axles. And it's crazy. And then like the guys who played Arnor and everything were kind of like, you should put that in the book. And then so we started doing that, and like it all went from like, let's go retire on a cruise to like, let's fall asleep at 6 p.m. Like this is terrible.
Full steam ahead, man. Full steam ahead. That is absolutely awesome. We're so looking forward to it.
And by the way, Victor, you contributed too, like the momentum of the entire effort. It's all about the momentum factor. It's not a matter of what should or shouldn't be done or anything like that. It's just the momentum. So one person does one thing, another person does another thing, and then like
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. It's been a fun ride for me the last couple of weeks. As you know, I've posted about a dozen different things that I've had in my back pocket that have all been like partial projects of stuff that I've always wanted to create, but I've been procrastinating. Life has taken over, and I said, you know what? Screw this. And I don't know, the gods were listening, because I was sick as a dog for like 7 days. So I was on and off for work, and I was just like, literally, like I was fighting a cold, and the only thing I could do was go to work, come home and sleep, go to work, come home and sleep. But in those few moments of clarity, I was like putting notes together going, okay, I took my medicine. It should kick in about 20 minutes. I got an hour before I fall asleep. Let's get this done. And Endgame Zero showed up, and I was watching an anime once, and I went back to revisit it again while I had the free time to watch it. And I wrote that, and then I dropped all these other, wonderful pieces of content that are just out there that I've been getting feedback back and forth from. But yeah, it's been awesome, and it's been nonstop. And I've been doing a lot of cleanup over the last week of just odds and ends and things I've seen, Ezra Harden's playbook and all that other nonsense. It'll be really cool to see what we do in the next few months.
I tell you, cleanup is a great word, because looking at your spell conversion, the Book of Yogg, and at first I was like, okay, well, whoa, what's going on? And then I looked at it, and on the one hand, I was really proud to tell everybody, hey, you guys, look at what Victor did. This is crazy. And I'm looking through the whole thing, and I realized, like, man, you could really boil it. This is really like 10 different spells, like in the form of 50 spells. And the number of emails that were created when I posted the Book of Yogg, it just all came my way. It all just descended upon me. And I think I owe you one, my brother. Somehow people realized not, oh, thank God my spells are converted. You whipped them into submission.
Right. That's what the whole point was. I wanted, because I don't use the Book of Yogg as I don't play D&D spells and put them in ICRPG. I like doing what Dungeon World taught us to do. You take a noun and a verb, you put them together, and you make a spell out of it, right? And I thought that was great that you would be able to put that into the next version of the magic system. But I wanted people to realize, and I'm glad it worked that way, I wanted people to see the SRD for D&D put into ICRPG, and then they realize, wait a minute, I don't need magic missile, lightning bolt, and fireball. I just need a magic bolt spell.
Yeah, and I got a million emails about it. And I basically said, hey, I'm going to do this podcast, and I'm going to make it more central to what I do, because I like what you guys are doing. I like the sort of audio format. I like the feeling of it. It feel a little more like myself, and I feel a little less like TV-ish, and I feel a little more real about who I am, and I think this matters. And between the Book of Yog and kind of announcing that kind of feeling of podcast, I got like a zillion new patrons and like a zillion emails. And then me and Alex are trying to do second edition and like, oh my God.
Yeah, I can't believe you're going to do that in March already. I mean, you realize March is 5 days away?
Oh yeah, man. We decided to absolutely destroy. We decided to just get it done. So I think Alex is actually done. It's just that it takes, we're doing this proofing process a totally different way, which is that we're doing it word by word, live together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he isn't doing it as a proofer submitting edits to me. We just do it as a sort of a hangout, and we've done the entire thing word by word. Like, oh my gosh, I've never put so much detail into anything, basically.
Yeah, isn't it incredible how much faster that you can get that process going when you do that? We do something similar with some of the technical documents that I do at my work, but we use like Microsoft Word, and we use Adobe, and we use a lot of the Creative Cloud technology to be able to be on the same document. And we're literally like tripping over each other, adding edits and notes and creations as we're having those conversations. So I can totally feel you how that works. It must make your work fly now. 150 pages is nothing compared to what you can do when you have that kind of system in place.
Yeah, well, Gary is just hoping one of us doesn't accidentally eject into space with our enthusiasm.
I'm just waiting for you two to get your man hug out of the way. Get your.
Hey, ever since that first episode of The Last Flight of the Red Sword, it's been on fire the whole freaking time. I have not had a game light by fire like this in Savage Rifts, and that's saying a lot because you guys know me. I'm a big Savage Rifts fan, and it's just been absolutely cuckoo ever since. The whole community and Hankeron's enthusiasm and the videos and the games. You guys know I'm preaching to the choir here. I'll just shut up now.
I'm just giving Victor all of his fanboy time that he can get right out of the gate.
Hey, you can't call it that when it's going both directions and we're both freaking out.
But yeah, I mean, I think I'm just the biggest fan of Hank's work as Hankeron is of my work, and I appreciate the feedback and the help and the pokings and the kudos and everything else that goes with it. I mean, I need somebody to keep me in check because sometimes my ideas get ahead of me and I get ahead of myself, and I can't do anything else but get excited for a great product. Who can't? I mean, there's lots of products out there that I like. I have a couple of them sitting on my workbench right now. I have some tools here that I absolutely adore, and I'll be the first ones. If I talk to the manufacturer or the writer or the creators of those, I'm going to be just as happy and excited I am as going to be talk to Hank stuff. But I'm in love with it. So either way, I'm going to continue to write stuff. I still have the ICRPG World Primer of Rifts sitting in my to-do list. It's a blank document at the moment, but man, I have a lot of ideas. That's going to be a lot of fun to put out there.
Victor, if nothing, the last 10 minutes have been a shining example of your excitement for ICRPG and for Hankeron.
Okay, now we're starting to get into some guts. So Gary, you better drop that gavel, dude.
Okay, you ready? Gary's gavel's coming out.
Gary's gavel.
Index card RPG Core 2.0. You went black.
Yeah, I saw a red game and I wanted to paint it black.
I love it. I love that you've changed it from white to black as your sort of, this is where you're going to end up. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a huge Savage Worlds fan, and Savage Worlds Black Edition is going to be coming out this year, which is going to be changing a few things and some stuff like that. So when I saw ICRPG Core 2 was black, I'm like, this game is just like faded. It's destined to have fallen in my lap. Questions. How many pages are we talking? Let's start with that, and then I have another one.
Okay, great. So, hey, first of all, Gary, sorry to be late, but man, thanks a lot for hosting, and it's awesome to be back and everything, and it's awesome to talk to you guys again. And I think just the fact that I was late, it speaks to what has been happening, which is that my focus has been so surprisingly altered. You know, in a lot of ways, I thought that second edition would be sort of slow and kind of later. And, you know, I needed a little bit of a break because as you guys and all hobbyists out there listening know that this hobby can sometimes become furious and become really restless in a way where you get excited about. And I was a little bit between those parts. I was between those excited phases. And it was nice because, man, you guys know sometimes you just need to just rest a little bit.
Yeah. But
when second edition sort of began, it began with with a fury. I mean, it just came so hard. It's like right after Mad Max eats that lizard, man, he realizes he's so far gone. He's just, I just ate a lizard. Let's do this, man. So when I ate that lizard, the moment was that Alex Alvarez, who's been a diehard ICRPG player since the beginning, but also one of the smartest people that I know, I had to just ask him as a friend and as a fellow intellectual. I just had to ask him. I was like, man, I have so many options presenting themselves right now. And when I was working on the vision of sort of doing Runehammer, I had almost no options in my mind. I didn't know what to do. But now that a little bit of time has passed, like so many people have shown up and have helped me out and have supported, and there's so many things that could be done. And everyone who's excited about second edition, they owe Alex a debt, because he just said, he's like, well, what's the core of what you're doing? What's the essence? It's not a question of how many ideas do you have. It's more, what is the essence of what's happening? And I was like, man, I got to admit, like ICRPG is light years beyond what I ever thought it would be. And we just keep going. It keeps growing and going places. And we kind of realized together, like, why would we postpone doing second edition? And so we kind of made a pact to go letter by letter and to go from top to bottom and get this sucker done. And once we started doing it, as you guys could probably imagine, I mean, we really started digging into every little piece of grout. And it has been so fun and so exciting. And then also the Immortals game happened, which became an adventure called Planet Killer. And that adventure also went into the book, and we started thinking about space fighters and battle suits, and we realized it had to be part of the core because we wanted to do some Mech Warrior stuff later this year, and we had to bring it together, and like all these sort of we have tos kind of started coming up, and holy moly. So we've been doing about every other day, we do a 2 or 3 hour session together, and we've been doing that now for more than a few weeks. And that's when I started feeling comfortable about announcing it, because I know that it's going to get done. I know that we're almost there. And so, Gary, you ask those nuts and bolts questions, and I love you asking. That's why I love this podcast. I love how you guys are not about sort of the hype of it, but the details, because the details, I think, are where the true players live. And so if we really want to get into the details, the book is twice as big as first edition. So,
oh my God,
it's I think we're just under 220 pages. That wasn't like a hooray, yay, a bigger book. I felt like, well, then surely there's something we can cut.
Yeah.
Surely we can cut down and we can boil and we can compress. And you guys, I don't know if you listened to it, but I did this podcast about the concept of a creative confidant, which is a person that you can trust with your newest and most risky ideas, and they can act as a creative sounding board, and not just as a creative sounding board, but as a human being who listens to you in an honest way. And the reason I did that podcast was because that's what I sort of discovered with Alex, is that this is a person who I've played with now for quite a while. But for whatever odd reason, it doesn't mean they're any better than anyone else. It just means that this is someone that you relate to in a certain way. And I realized that this confidant relationship was giving rise to second edition. And so that's what we've been doing. So it's a lot bigger book. As far as rules go, the refinement factor is probably not shocking to people who have intuited the essence of the game, but is much clearer and more concise and crisp to those who are going to enter in the future. And I think that's probably the biggest step. And then as far as additions, there's a lot of new monsters, and the cutting floor is littered with monsters, but I wanted to put in monsters that would cover monsters that you wanted to add. So like one of the biggest ones is the new Swarm that we put in. So we put in a monster called Swarm, which could be any swarm that you want to run, but that gives you those bases. And then also, I think maybe even the best part of second edition, which has been hinted at, but is the chunk system and the system used in Planet Killer, the system used for doing battle suits and space fighters and stuff. And when we ran Planet Killer, I think that adventure probably opened my eyes more than anything else we've done, which is when I realized I could run a Rifts or a MechWarrior or BattleTech style game and not accidentally lose the detail, because sometimes in a MechWarrior game, the detail is the joy. And so if you lose the detail, like if you lose heat and you lose parts and you lose, weapons being blown up and stuff like that, then you lose the game. You can't oversimplify it. And after we played Planet Killer, which was, 2 weeks, 2 different adventures with 10 total players, 2 groups of 5 players. And like after that was completed, I think that was probably the biggest leap that we made in ICRPG. And that's all in 2nd edition. So to be able to finally boil that in and to be able to play anything from Car Wars to MechWarrior to almost like a Rebel Alliance type feel and all these things, you felt like, man, not only are we done, we need to document and we need to clean up and we need to get done. So, whew, man, is that a mouthful.
Yeah, I was so disappointed that I couldn't be a part of the Immortals game. I wanted to see the Robotech and the power armor and the whole chunks flying. But I think what you've shown in Patreon and the YouTube videos that everybody got to see, that was some awesome adaptations to the rules. I can't wait to look and see what Core 2.0 puts together.
You got guys in space fighters like punching it at maximum throttle in space who get their ion drive blown up. So their other chunks are totally intact and they're just drifting at maximum speed in a straight line. I mean, that's awesome. Or we had a battle suit that was hanging on to a Veritech fighter because it was the only way he could get off the carrier as it exploded. And he's making strength checks every turn to hold on as this space fighter is dogfighting and zipping back and forth. And there's a battle suit hanging on to the stabilizers. I mean, that's just too damn good to even make up.
Yeah, you couldn't make that up if you tried. Plus the fact that you got that to happen without the rules getting in the way, without, you having to wait an hour to figure out mechanics or whatever. That's absolutely awesome.
Now, the Immortals game, is that available for us to check out anywhere?
Nope. The first one, we had like technical difficulties, and we also got a little bit personal, to be totally honest, because we found ourselves just playing. We didn't hit the mute button right a few times, and we had some spouses on the stream and stuff like that. And when that happens, I prefer not to put it on the internet for all time, because I think it's not fair. It's not fair to use your friends as an archive. And I've always believed that. And so on the one hand, I apologize to everybody who really wants to see it or listen to it. But on the other hand, I think everybody understands, that I know that this is sort of an effort about exposing RPGs and having a great time, but it's also reality for me. And I can't exploit the people that I make friends with and just document them in an exposed fashion. So that's what happened in the first one. And then in the second round, because that happened, I just decided, hey, this is just for us, guys. We're not even going to stream live. We're not going to do anything. Let's just have fun and play. And I'm not sure everyone can relate to it, but I did receive several messages afterwards, which is that you don't always want to stream who you are and what you do. There is joy to what we do because of itself, not because I'm waving my arms in front of the world. I do this because I love doing it, not because I crave fame or some kind of weird dysfunctional behavior. It's just fun with friends. And sometimes you want to just have a good time with your friends. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, that's totally what it's all about. That's what we were talking about earlier. We were having a discussion, kind of wondering what we were going to talk about on this show and some of the things that we were going over, what happens at our table, who GMs, who plays, and why we play. And even Frank and I were talking, sometimes they tell Frank on his Patreon page, you should charge more for the maps that you make because they think they're really good. And they are. They're decent quality. I like the work that he does, and I've even used them at my table. But I told him and Frank asked me the question, why don't you charge for all the things that you put out there? And I told him, because I don't want to have to charge people for stuff that I love to do. I want to be able to share this with everybody because it does no one any good sitting on my hard drive. It needs to get out into the world and go do it. And that's what it's all about, sharing with your friends, making new friends, and having a good time at the game table. And I totally agree with your opinion. It's just awesome.
Victor's also married with children, and if he quit his day job to start pumping out, his wife would like literally probably kill him. I could see that happening.
Yeah,
as long as he live streams that murder,
Billions of dollars.
Yeah, but it can only happen once.
I was asking about the Immortals because I just finished listening to all 6 episodes of the one-shot Aliens, and that was fantastic. I was riveted listening to that stuff. Yeah, that was so cool. Well, especially because you know aliens. Like, you know, there is no what's going on. When I listen to Warp Shell or I listen to Ghost Mountain or Alfheim, I'm listening more to the story elements, to the things that are happening behind the scenes. What is this town about? What is this place about? What's happening over here? You know, who are the characters and the players? But you know who they are in Aliens. You know the guns, you know the weapons, you know the tech, all of that kind of stuff, right? So it's more about the story when I listen to that, and then when you get into that aspect of it, you're really paying attention to what's going on inside the story. So I was curious to know about the Immortal stuff because in Core 2.0, there's going to be a solid section on chunks, how to work chunks, different stuff about chunks. That is we're going to get some of that in the 2.0.
Yeah, I think the way that chunks are fully delivered is that they're in speed kills, which still is the essence of how chunks work, but you get examples that I think in my mind were implicit but now are explicit, and I'm proud of that, because in my head I knew that chunks were everything that I've been running since my BattleTech days or my MechWarrior days. And to then be able, you know, like back in the day, I don't know if this gets too detailed or crazy, but you guys, I used to take the heat readouts on BattleTech, and I used to scribble all of them out except 10 little bubbles. And that way, I had a little 10 bubble hit point readout on my character sheet for my Crusader, which was the only one I ever cared about. I always played Crusader. And then we would use that as a hit point, and so each limb basically had hit points, and that is really the beginning of chunks. And so it was a little bit implied before in speed kills, and I don't think a lot of people actually play speed kills because it can be hard to run for a GM to run a Car Wars style game. And so I think that the way that 2E finishes the job is that it shows you, hey, speed kills was just an idea. It doesn't have to be all fast moving cars. It can be battle suits, it can be fighters, and then I think fighters really finally cleaned it up because they aren't just built out of chunks. Because, you know, when you're shooting another space fighter, you're not shooting a guy's hit points. That's a ridiculous notion. And it really brings chunks into focus. And then also with fighters, you're not moving in feet, which is the thing I think that can be confusing for people who are running Car Wars, is that it's still kind of like moving an RPG character around. But in space, like flying a Veritech fighter, it's nothing like moving a character around. It's wildly different. And that's where playing in sectors and using fighter maneuvers, which is what I posted that sneak peek today on Patreon, that to me finished the job as far as chunks, vehicles, battle suits, and it all finally kind of got done. Also, the Imperator, you know, the gigantic sort of ghost armor from Planet Killer is also in 2E as a sort of cannon monster. And he's a big daddy with lots of 10 hit point chunks, and he is very hard to break apart and to beat. And I think it just expands and demonstrates the idea rather than sort of sketching it, which is what I think speed kills. Does that answer what you mean, Gary? Yeah, because you're pumping out so much stuff, I don't have time to keep up. Can you just simmer down, mister, a little bit? I'm sorry, that can't happen. No, and don't. Right now, people are going to start throwing stones at me. I can just feel it. I'll walk out in public, somebody's going to throw a rock at me. What do you mean? Tell them to slow down. When you came out with the Worlds book, there is a very specific adventure in there that dealt with chunks, and I'm trying to find out what it's called because you were asking everybody to play it, and it's the one big badass or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about? One nasty bastard. Right, and that was sort of your first jump into the chunk system, which was absolutely which, you know, and you're like, you know, play it and let everybody know. I haven't had a chance to get around to play it yet, and now I find out you've done the car stuff, which is pretty cool. And then I was on the Patreon today. I got the message, and then that thing pops up with the fighter pilots, and I'm like, this is slick because now you've actually got sort of 3 really good bases or genres for your chunk system. You've got cars,
robots and space fighting stuff going on now. So I'm like, wow, Chunks, you've really sort of worked it out, and I'm kind of hoping that your experience on all the stuff that you're doing with it will come or sort of shine through, so that I don't have to read an adventure. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and get the deal of how core works.
That anyone who played Car Wars for a long time knows, which if anybody listening is a Car Wars player, man, Wakanda forever salute to you guys, because that experience is basically learning that the cars aren't moving, that the cars are kind of like static pieces that are either accelerating and pulling away, or fighting and running parallel, or falling behind. That's really the only states that cars are in when you play Car Wars. It's a lot like Mad Max, you know? In Mad Max, the cars are either faster, slower, or about your speed. And when you start realizing that, you realize how much simpler it really is than on-foot combat in a fantasy type setting. And to me, that was the big sort of revelation that started opening Chunks up. And this happened many, many years ago, which is when we started having trouble running speed, and we were playing the board game Thunder Road. And we kind of just hacked that apart, and we basically started thinking, look, your car is kind of like in 4 pieces, and then there's you, and you're either next to me, pulling away, or falling behind. Those are really your only states. And over time now, the more that it has been put into it, the more that became systematized. And I think One Nasty Bastard is probably story-wise a little bit of a boring adventure. I mean, it's basically a hostage situation, but you have a hostage situation of people on foot facing a vehicular challenge. And I think that is a really fun idea. That is a classic sort of action scene puzzle that over the years in movies and in games has been solved so many different ways. I think maybe even my favorite one might be Shinobi, you know, where you jump on these speeding tanks as they're ripping through this city, and you're barely capable of really damaging the tanks, but you can damage the pilots, you can blow up the tracks, you can eliminate the cannon on top, and I think that stuff has all found its way down. And also, like with the hover bikes in Rifts, like it was kind of a similar situation. You know, they're a little bit out of your league as far as how much structure there is to destroy, but you can get on them.
Yeah.
You can destroy the cannon, you can destroy the drive, you can work through the pieces, but I don't think it was ever put in clear enough terms where you're like, I just want to destroy the drive on this thing. But I always think that players intuited that type of concept. Players would always say, well, I just want to, you know, blow the cockpit off this thing. The rest of it can just hurl into a mountain, like Buckaroo Banzai style.
Right.
And I think that all that different stuff, thanks to having great people that play games with me every week, that it kind of started gelling together, and it kind of came into something. And then the Planet Killer adventures to me just felt like proof. You know, I was coming into Planet Killer, especially part 2, not knowing if the dogfight rules would make any sense, if it would be okay with everybody. And then they instantly expanded upon it, which is that they put 2 players in one fighter, which I never ever anticipated, but they did a co-pilot. And so we gave that fighter an action on both players' turns. And it just dawned on me like how beautiful it is to have a co-pilot. Like on one turn you can do a maneuver, and the other turn you can do a weapons type action. Whereas if there's only one player in a different fighter, he can only choose. Oh man, and then it just, so those guys really, I owe those guys a debt, because they truly crystallized the dogfight and the chunk mechanics for fighters. So whoa.
Is that the premise for you releasing that on Patreon, because you're like, hey, check out the piloting and co-piloting genius stuff that we pumped out today? Because I'm reading it at the bottom here, which is pretty neat.
You know, I wrote that a little while ago, but early today when I was waking up and checking all my stuff, I got a great message on Facebook, which was like, dude, I'm running a game tonight, and I feel like my sort of fighter stuff is feeling clumsy, but I want to do like a Veritech thing, because you mentioned that, and I want to do like a Robotech one-shot tonight, and you mentioned that you were maybe going to post that. Could you post that? And I was like, oh my God, I'm such a bum. So I just, got a quick screenshot of the page right out of InDesign. So that's like not That's not even a PDF or anything. That's like
That's
a
raw footage.
Macintosh screen grab.
Wow. That's awesome.
So core is going to be 250 some odd pages. You've got
Well,
the worlds.
it's 220s, I think. It's not quite double, but it's definitely about 100 pages more. So we'll see where it goes. But 250 would be the absolute top end. I would feel disappointed at that point.
Okay, and then you've got the worlds that's rolling in at 122.
Yeah, Worlds was meant to be the same length as first edition core.
Yeah, and then we're in the core that we're getting is going to be the 200 and however many pages with a nice slick black cover. Once that gets thrown out, how much longer am I going to have to wait till I get my all-in-one spank bank book of ICRPG goodness all mixed up into one? When are we making?
So I think I've changed. That's a great baiting question, but
right.
Well, I think that I've changed my dreams a little bit in the course of making 2E. So the original vision was to do 4 books for ICRPG and never more than 4 books, because I've always felt that if you have too many, it works against a game, not for the game. And so I always wanted it to be a 4-book game. And I've changed my dream a little bit as we've been making second edition. And so I actually think that instead of making a 4-book game, we're going to do, I guess, what we could call the Spank Bank, which is this big book at the end. And the big book at the end would be Worlds and Core, and then also the final 2 books, which are not really talked about, but a little bit worked on so far. But I can't say too much because I don't want to start the crazy train. But those are the Good and Evil books. And I think that would be one hell of a big, beefy book, and especially in trade format, which is the sort of 6x9 format. To have a 500-page book that's in 6x9 would be really cool, kind of like the Burning Wheel book. It would be a similar sort of mass as far as how big.
So where do we sign up for that, and where do we send our money? I want to know how we're going to get our hands on a limited edition.
In your pocket. Put it in your pocket. Give it to you. Buy a popsicle for your kid.
I feel at this point of the game that Victor just needs to walk up your driveway and knock on your door.
Just remember the first rules of gangsters: cash up front.
Cash up front.
Well, luckily I'm not a gangster, so I don't have to abide by those rules.
Great, man. I know you've talked a little bit, Hankern, about putting something on Amazon or creating something like a limited edition for Core or whatever. I know lots of people have approached me and asked me about, hey, do you know anything about this? I'm like, I don't know any more than you know. So I'm sure everybody's chomping at the bit to hear more.
Yeah, Core second edition will be on Amazon. Yeah, I'm going to actually do a stockpile, basically an old school revenue model. So, I don't know if everybody realizes, but drive-thru has enabled me to make a business because I don't have to stockpile books. They're created as people order them. But to do fulfillment on Amazon, you really need to make sure that Amazon has your books. In order to do that, you have to make a big sort of financial risk. You have to say, hey, I'm going to print 500 copies of my book and hope they sell. Now, they probably will sell, and that's fine and dandy. But there is, a moment of, that can be 2, 3, even 6 months of mortgage and groceries.
Sure. You go and buy 1,000 copies of it. You can't eat 1,000 copies of the books.
Well, hey, that remains to be seen.
You get hungry enough, you can eat anything.
Don't tell me what I can't do.
When Core comes out and you throw it on Amazon, would you prefer that your devouts buy it from Amazon just to make sure that those books get eaten up, or just say the word, buddy? I plan on buying a couple of these books. In fact, I'm probably going to be in for 3 or 4.
He wants everyone to buy the print on demand from the drive-thru, and he wants everyone to buy the Amazon book, and he wants them to buy the PDF all at the same time.
Oh my God, get out of here. No, what I really want is for people to play games with Veritech fighters and swarm missiles. That's what I want.
Robotech ICRPG right here. Thinking about it.
That's happening. My satisfaction levels will be very high, and I will be able to eat books for a living.
You remember when I talked to you about doing index card role-playing game as a miniature war game?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the Robotech miniature war game would be awesome to use ICRPG with. I think they would go hand in hand to do that.
Oh yeah, and I think that as we get there, I really think that the Fall of Arnor was a BattleTech game. We did Rebel, we had battlesuit like rules. We had a few people who their battlesuits were destroyed and they were on foot, and we had reactor overloads, and we had like heat issues, and I don't know. We had all the things that used to make me go so crazy for playing BattleTech and MechWarrior, and we had them in that game. And to me, more importantly, we had that camaraderie between people that no rule or system can ever capture. That if you have the math out of the way, but still detailed enough that people who hadn't even met before that night, by the end of the night, are willing to be vaporized together to accomplish the mission. And to me, that was the game. That was the fun of that night. Not that we had figured out how to run a chain gun on a battle suit, because you can figure that out. But
Yeah.
it was that they were doing these reactor overload bear hugs and like watching a planet disintegrating under their feet, like while saluting and shit like that.
Are you guys finished making love to one another yet?
No,
It never ends.
but feel free to join in.
I'm trying to. You guys are killing me. The cost, as attributed to the world's coolest game community, you're not changing the price. If you already own 1.35, you're just going to give us an extra 80 pages in 2.0. So if we've purchased 1.35 on drive-through, we're already getting it, which is kind of why I'm going to reroute again back to this question. We could order pod off of drive-through and pay the price that way, or you're going to have your books there. Again, I'm assuming I'm probably going to buy at least 3, one for myself, one for my buddy Harrison, and my local gaming store, Jay. Well, that's what I'm getting, 3 hardcovers for sure. Would you prefer that I buy them off Amazon? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like
a little bit of a delay. So if you want to really get those freshies, then you don't want to be waiting for Amazon. There will be a delay on Amazon. But yeah, I mean, if you really want to sort of put it all out in the open, it's pretty easy to offer a second edition with no charge to everyone who has bought the game. I mean, could you ask people to buy it again? Yes, but to me that is somewhat effortless. Those are the loyal shower uppers of ICRPG, and to me it's easy in a way, to offer that. The harder part is the hard copies. I guess if you really want to get down to brass tacks, it's almost half of the margin of those books I'm going to eat to keep them at the same price, because they're bigger books. So to keep those books at the exact same price, I basically just eat all of the additional margin of making a bigger book. And I don't want to say that as a lamentation. I want to say it as a point of pride, which is that I'm very proud not to say, you guys helped me make a bigger, better game, and so now I'm going to hit you with that. No, that is not the right thing to do. That is not the honorable thing to do. The honorable thing to do is to hold and not be greedy and just eat it as a publisher and let it be. So on the one hand, yeah, everyone who showed up early in PDF form gets all this work for free. And I've committed to that from the very beginning, is that you get free for life updates. And this is part of the magic of drive-through, is that it's the same product. So I'm just going to update that same product. So you will be able to go back into your library and just update that product. You're not buying a new product. And I'm really proud of that. But as far as getting hardbacks, yeah, you're going to have to buy again, but it will be the exact same price. And I'm really proud of that. I think to me, that's a bit of an accomplishment. I'm very excited about that. So as far as Amazon, yeah, you'll probably get a better deal on shipping, but there will be a delay, as I use One Bookshelf, which is the manufacturer that provides drive-through. So I'll be using them to stockpile Amazon. So you do have a little bit of there's a bit of a go-between that happens there to reach a bigger audience. But for all the people who have been frustrated or unable to discover ICRPG because the sort of limited scope of drive-through RPG's audience, we're going to break that barrier. We're going to get it out to a bigger world. And I think that's the more exciting part about Amazon.
Yeah, I'm excited for the system for sort of different reasons than most people are. I've been a 35-year player of D&D, and I know we talked about this before, how your system scrapes off all the crud, and that's what I want the world to see. Stop playing effing D&D. You don't need all of the crap. You can play a fantastic, refined and better game by playing a simpler system. Dungeons and Dragons has become so overinflated, but it's the big go-to. Everybody, I love D&D. I buy all the books, and I don't even play it anymore. But I will still buy the books because I'm a collector as well. But I went from D&D to Savage Worlds because it was a simpler system, and like you guys are talking with the Magic Bolt, one spell can cover a wide range of what you want it to do just by putting a different trapping on it. Your Magic Bolt might be paper balls flying out of your hand doing damage, and other guys might be fireballs, and other guys might be ice balls. But it all does the same thing in the end, which is not what you have in Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, for that matter. Pathfinder just came out with like a 500-page book on how to play Pathfinder in space. And it's so unnecessary, but it's like people don't come out of their comfort zones to go check out other stuff. And you have this system here, and now it's me being fanboy.
Well, I think too, there's no denying the creative horsepower of Paizo or Wizards of the Coast. There's just no denying it. And I know a lot of those professionals, and those people are brilliant people, and they do amazing content for RPGs. And especially if you want to look into the past and the legacy that our hobby owes them, it's undeniable. But I would like to imagine that skilled dungeon master that you dream of getting, that runs the game that you're visualizing, that you hope that you're part of, is in some ways secretly reading ICRPG. Mm-hmm. So the players get to feel that mainstream feeling of saying, I'm playing D&D, because that's a very comfortable thing to say. Right. But your DM might be using lots of tricks that come from ICRPG that just, to me, make it a little bit more of a slick game. But I think especially from a player point of view, it's really a lot easier to say, I kind of am thinking about getting into playing tabletop, so I'm going to get D&D. I think there's an undeniable momentum there that has been well earned over the years. Yeah. And, I don't think we should pretend to be supplanting or changing that, but we can make it cooler and more fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I buy the D&D books now because I'm a weathered gamer. I buy them now for the ideas. Is really what I get out of them. You know what I mean? Like, there's the, I wish I could remember it. Like I'm so bad with names when it comes to stuff, but the new jungle one that just came out, that's
Tomb of Annihilation.
Right? Like, that's cool. My entire plan of buying that book was to run that inside of Savage Worlds because the mechanics is so much better, and now I've got ICRPG, and it's like, I can do way less conversion with this, and I can run that entire adventure using ICRPG rules and streamline it even more. But man, I need more time. I feel like the Twilight Zone, the librarian one where the guy just wants to read books and everybody's like, you need to do this. You need to go to work, mister. You need to take your kids to music. You know what I mean? And
well, get some spare glasses then, Gary, please.
No, right? You've seen it, yeah. Because right at the end, when the world goes kaput, he sits down on the steps and he's like, finally I can stop and do the one thing that I want to do. And then he breaks his glasses and can no longer do it. And now he's just alone sitting on the steps. That's me. That's my life in a nutshell.
And it's a good example to remind everybody the fundamental truth, which is there are no gates and there's no Illuminati and there are no secrets of our hobby. And because Mike Merles is one of the lead designers on 5th edition. And not only is he very humble and self-deprecating about his influence on D&D, but he also, if you follow him on Twitter, he's like really excited about running his little 40K game on the side right now. And what does that mean? Does that mean 40K is somehow cool and he's frustrated with D&D? Hell no. It just means that it's a big hobby with lots of possibilities. And it takes many forms, and I would bet my bottom dollar that unannounced, like Mike is running some kind of weird 40K D&D crossover freak show that only a few people know about and stuff, because what else would you do? I mean, that's a natural progression.
Yeah, he keeps it highly under wraps.
I appreciate you bring it up, because I don't think it's a one or the other, this, that, or the other thing. It's like Weathered Gamer is a great way to describe it. Like I also buy all the D&D books, because I like to read them. I mean, it's that simple. Like and that's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with I love the Pathfinder core book, the old original one. I love that book. It's huge, but it makes you want to get to the table and play. And I think that's a great thing. Now, do I want to play out of that book? Oh my God, no. But it's an awesome book I'm proud of that is on my fireplace, not in my back room.
If I had to take a book to a fight, it would be one of those books.
To use as a shield?
or you can take a bullet.
Right? Or armor, or anything along those lines. I'm looking. Core 2 also comes with a couple new character sheets. Are they genre specific? Is there a Ghost Mountain one that you've drawn up and a Warp Shell one that's maybe a little more? Anything like that? Or you've got 2 new character sheets here listed as part of what's...
The Underground Warp Shell sheet that actually got used a lot more than I thought it would is now sort of, I guess, quote-unquote canon, so it's in the book. The mini sheets are in there. I did a Ghost Mountain sheet that is in there, but the Ghost Mountain sheet isn't like covered in, like old-timey fonts or anything. I found that the theming of the sheet almost, in my mind, got in the way of it. So it didn't wind up, like with a picture of a tumbleweed on it or something cheesy like that. It just basically became a sort of an alternate sheet. And then also we're going to include Daniel's character sheet from the Moldy Codex. So he agreed to go ahead and let me put that in there as a sort of a canon 2E sheet. And then also Frank has been nice enough to let me put in his half sheet as a canon sheet. So you get a whole section at the end, which is kind of like, which sheet do you enjoy the most? And, print it out and throw it in there. So in the print book, if you're so awesome old school that you use like a Xerox, then there you have those. Also, I'm putting in a fun little section, which I hope people use, which to me is a real throwback, which is the very end of the book is 8 standard sheets. And so you can actually just write your characters right into your book, which I used to do when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yep.
And
back in the day.
It's a cool way to just defile your book. So I'm going to do that too. But then obviously in the PDF, you'll be getting the, the form fillable PDFs and the individual PDFs and all that good stuff. You know how the PDF gets lots of files in the zip and everything. But I think that any game that has lots of alternatives for a character sheet, I've always been a real sucker for alternate character sheets.
The bizarre loot that's coming out. Are you going to have some cool stuff in there like Victor's underwear?
Oh my God, the most difficult loot table I ever wrote. I got like 15 into it and I thought I was such a clever little devil. And then I was like, what the hell do I do for the other 85 items?
It all went to hell from there, didn't it?
It was so difficult. So yeah, we had a Facebook thread going for a while and these guys kept telling me ideas and every idea they said, I was like, nah, no.
Blue bananas.
No, there's no blue bananas. It's not bizarre.
Blue bananas.
It's basically normal canon at this point. I mean, these things are very strange. Like one of them is called the U doll, and you find like a doll that looks exactly like you, and it has behaviors that mimic you and stuff. Like when I say bizarre loot, I'm not like messing around.
Oh man!
Like it is messed up, super strange, not right kind of stuff.
That's too many late nights drinking and playing at the same time, right?
Oh man, I wish, because I thought it was going to be so funny and so easy. And just after like a dozen of them, it got so challenging and so difficult to kind of break the stereotypes. It really became a challenge, but I'm really proud of it. Just finished it yesterday.
Cool, can't wait.
I was trying to find, what's the cloak called that wraps around you and attacks you?
The Cloak of Eris.
Is there? No, what's the D&D one? Like, I think it might be Cloak of the Manta Ray, but I'm not sure. But I think that might be the one I'm thinking of. And basically, it looks like a cloak hanging up, and you put it on, and then it comes to life and just sort of wraps you up and starts eating you. I was just thinking, like, Victor's underwear of the Manta Ray would be sweet.
You mean a dark mantle?
A dark mantle, yes.
Yeah, dark mantle.
There you go. That's a critter, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
See?
yeah, it's a creature that looks like a cape, yeah.
Yes. Now you just have to turn that into a magic item, name it Ezra Harden's old underwear, and that's what happens when you put it on. Okay, anyways.
Underwear.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's basically the kind of material we kept going in circles on. We had so many ideas that were kind of just like gags. And, you do one or two gags and you think it's pretty funny, and then you're just like, oh my God, the gags.
Uh-huh. Yep, you're done, right?
With these gags, it's like, hey, it's a sword, but it's not a sword. You're like, all right.
Okay, so that kind of puts Core into a bit of a nutshell there, which is pretty sweet. We're going to be getting a bunch of extra new pages, 2-part adventure on Planet Killer, which is pretty cool. The space dogfighting rules, the revised classes and rules clarifications. That's always key.
And a bunch of new monsters, about a dozen new monsters.
Yep, tweaks and improvements driven by customer feedback, which is pretty cool. And there's going to be a bunch of complete entries for Warp Shell monsters, which I think is fantastic. One of my biggest complaints about Dungeons and Dragons is the you should have to have a DM's card in order to buy the monster manual. How many times at your games has somebody come in and had the monster manual as a player? Something they don't need to have, right? Oh, and then let's use my dark mantle for an example. Then they start looking. You see them, rolling through the book. But I would love to see a monster manual come out for this. In fact, not even so much that. You know what I'd really like, and this is going to sound dumb, but anyways, I've mentioned this to you previously. I would like. What I like about your book is the way that you've designed your adventures. Let's take Flight of the Red Sword because it's pretty common. When you get your traditional quote-unquote module, there is so much stuff in there for the GM to unpack while you're trying to figure out how to play this game. And the way that you've got it set up is everything is in point form. Here's a little description of what the room is. Not even something that you read as a GM. Like, how they have the read this out loud boxes? You don't even do some of that. You basically just say, this is what this room is. The arrival. So you appear here, you talk about what happens and sort of set the scene in the arrival, and then you just go onto the docking bay. But you have this entire, I've seen it, it's a 3-4 hour like regular gaming module strapped up into a freaking page or two. And that's the kind of thing, like, I don't know if maybe you just could, because you can't sell that, as most people are looking to see a page count, but there is enough in this Flight of the Red Sword that's unwritten and left up to the player that it literally could be a module. And that's so tying it back around to what I was originally talking about is I would like to see, here's a format you can have on how to make an adventure. Your room's here, keep it simple, don't worry about the text blocks, throw in your bullet points, add in this little bit, you need to have, some sight, some sound, some smell, and just write these into your descriptive paragraph, and then things that your players can find, reveal, or tidbits of information, and that's it for your entire one scene that you've got. There is none of that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've nailed that idea sort of perfectly down into that. I
appreciate that. I still think that the most poignant element of Red Sword is probably the least played, which is the locket. So if anybody saw the way that I ran Red Sword, is that the locket is actually the twist of the entire story, which is, that the captain of the Red Sword was in love with this girl, and it was for her that he was going to destroy the Dark Star and everything. And
it's always about a girl.
That story and that tone and that method of storytelling, to me, I cut my teeth in the old Dragon magazine days, and that was when you got adventures in 2, 3, 5 pages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that would include your map and your monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And you really only got that opening page. Like I say it all the time. I know it's a bit of a broken record, but Song of the Fen is still my favorite published module of all time. 5-page adventure, but there's something about it that in such short form, it gave you such a poignant statement about a sad situation. And then, of course, yeah, your players are going to, create all kinds of ballyhoo and dust-ups and so on and so forth. They're going to get into all kinds of battles and do these kinds of things, but that's for them to invent. You're just a stage manager. You're just a guy, building backdrops. And if you're doing more than that, you might be imprisoning your characters in a way. And I think that the fun of doing it can actually blind some dungeon masters into seeing that they're imprisoning their characters. But for people who are playing every week for years on end, you really start realizing that there's really only, as you said, Gary, you need sights and sounds and a couple of moments where you can revel in revelation. And other than that, you don't need anything. You're good to go. Let the players do everything else, because what do people watch when they go see a play? Characters. They're not enamored with your set, because your set is like a couch. And it's not hard to describe a couch.
All right, folks, that wraps up the Core 2.0 part of the chat. Almost nicely rounded off to an hour, an easy bite-sized chunk. Stay tuned next week for the other half of this conversation, where we will drill hankering for the info on Alfheim Living World, the idea that was recently thrown up on the Google Pluses. We have an interesting chat on the idea and the logistics behind this massive endeavor. Also, Nerds International Virtual Convention, March 10th to the 11th. If you want to play online with some of the nerds, here's your chance. Numerous games run in Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, and even Tabletop Simulator. Yeah, that's right. Experience some solid immersion as we go all 3D up in your business. I will be running an extremely ridiculous Western setting in my homebrew world of Gartar. Reports are coming in of a never-before-seen evil rampaging the lands and laying waste to local towns. If you're interested in playing, you can sign up for these games and get full information at nerdsinternationalvirtualcon.wordpress.com, link in the show notes. Also, I would like to direct your attention towards Mr. Mean, John Polak. He does some incredible stuff, and not even some incredible stuff, but a lot of stuff. There's Gasland's post-apocalyptic vehicular combat review. He does a Tor Eternity unboxing. Numerous other interviews with people that make things like Shattered. I'm pretty sure that there's some indie guys that he was doing some stuff with. Yeah, so Mr. Mean, John Polak, does a bunch of stuff. A lot of interviews, a lot of reviews, a lot of cool stuff, and you can find them on YouTube's. I'll also put links in the show notes. All right, Victor, take it away with a song and a dance, mister.
Here we go. Here comes a song and dance. Ladies and gentlemen, you can reach us at murderhoboshow@gmail.com or in the subject line if you put ICRPG. You can also get us on Twitter if you can keep it under 280 characters, because that's right. Twitter's moved up and they've doubled the amount of characters you can post. So once again, you can reach us on Twitter at Murder Hobo Show, or of course over at the Google Plus page, Murder Hobo Show, under the Nerds International banner. You can reach out to myself directly on the Google Plus Savage Rifts page. You're always going to find me there. You guys know me. You guys can talk to me over on the Google Plus page for ICRPG as well. Always very active and alive. So make sure you guys drop us a note and let us know what you think.
Frank, what about you? What do you got?
I just want to remind everybody to drop us a line. Let us know what topics you would like us to cover in the future episodes. And as always, you can find my tabletop and virtual tabletop maps, 2.5D modular tiles, and all kinds of other gaming stuff at my Patreon, which is located at patreon.com/FrankT.
Very nice, yeah, for sure. And that's going to wrap up this show. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you next time. The Murder Hobo Show is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and education or review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Murder Hobo Show, copyright 2018, all rights reserved.